That's adorable, Elon Musk laughed into the microphone, his voice echoing through the packed technology summit. But clearly, you don't understand how neural networks actually function. The crowd's reaction was immediate, awkward chuckles, shocked gasps, and the unmistakable sound of hundreds of phones starting to record. This wasn't just another tech conference moment. This was Elon Musk, the self-proclaimed AI visionary, publicly mocking former White House spokesperson Karoline Leavitt on stage. The camera panned to Leavitt, who didn't flinch or show embarrassment. Instead, she calmly reached for her own microphone. "Actually, Mr. Musk," she began, her voice steady and confident, "perhaps I could explain the difference between supervised and unsupervised learning models, and why your recent claims about AGI timelines contradict your own company's technical documentation." Musk's smirk vanished. The audience fell completely silent. What happened in the next 3 minutes didn't just change the energy in the room, it transformed how millions would view both figures in this unexpected intellectual showdown. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more jaw-dropping confrontations between today's most influential figures. The annual Future of Technology Summit in Austin had drawn the usual mix of tech executives, investors, journalists, and policy experts. This year's central theme focused on artificial intelligence regulation, a topic that had created unprecedented tension between Silicon Valley innovators and Washington policymakers. Elon Musk had been invited as the keynote speaker, fresh off his company's latest AI model release that had generated both acclaim and controversy. His public statements had grown increasingly confident about his understanding of artificial intelligence, often dismissing critics as people who simply couldn't grasp the complexity of his vision. Karoline Leavitt represented a different world entirely. As a former White House spokesperson who had recently joined a technology policy institute, she had become an unexpected voice in the AI regulation debate. Though not a technical expert by training, she had dedicated the past year to studying the intersection of technology and policy. Consulting with leading computer scientists and ethicists, the confrontation began during what was supposed to be a standard Q&A session following Musk's keynote address. Leavitt had raised her hand and asked a pointed question about Musk's opposition to certain AI safety regulations. "Given that your own research papers acknowledge the limitations in controlling advanced AI systems," she asked, "why are you publicly fighting against the very safeguards your technical teams recommend in their peer-reviewed publications?" It was a precise question that referenced specific technical contradictions, exactly the kind of challenge Musk typically avoided in public forums. Perhaps that's why, instead of addressing the substance, he opted for dismissal. "That's adorable," he had responded with a chuckle. "But clearly, you don't understand how neural networks actually function." It was a response designed to get an easy laugh, the tech visionary putting the political operative in her place. In previous years, it might have worked. The audience might have chuckled along and the moment would have passed, but Musk had made a critical miscalculation. He had assumed Leavitt was just another policy person with surface-level talking points. He had no idea that she had spent months preparing for exactly this type of encounter, anticipating that her background would lead technical figures to underestimate her knowledge. When she calmly asked for the microphone again and began to speak about supervised learning models, the dynamic shifted instantly. This wasn't in the script. The audience, expecting to see Leavitt embarrassed or flustered, instead witnessed something entirely different unfolding before them. For Musk, who had grown accustomed to controlling narratives and dominating technical conversations with his characteristic confidence, this unexpected challenge created a visible moment of uncertainty. His usual tactics, humor, dismissal, changing the subject, suddenly seemed inappropriate as Leavitt continued speaking with remarkable precision about the very technology that had made him billions. The stage was set for a confrontation that would quickly transcend the conference walls and captivate millions online, a modern David versus Goliath moment where knowledge was about to triumph over status in the most public way possible. "To address your dismissal directly," Leavitt continued, her voice clear and measured, "I'd like to reference the paper your own researchers published last quarter in the Journal of Machine Learning. She didn't need notes. She had studied these materials extensively, preparing for months for opportunities to engage with industry leaders who might underestimate her. Page 42 specifically states, and I quote, "Current transformer-based architectures demonstrate fundamental limitations in reasoning capabilities that cannot be resolved simply through scaling parameters. Your chief scientist confirmed this in last month's IEEE conference." Musk shifted his weight, the easy confidence now replaced with a more guarded posture. He reached for his water bottle, buying a moment to think. "You're taking that out of context," he responded, his tone now noticeably more serious. "Those limitations apply to specific use cases, not to the broader capabilities we've demonstrated." Leavitt nodded respectfully but didn't back down. "I understand your point about context, but that same paper goes on to recommend robust external validation systems and regulatory frameworks for high-risk deployments, the exact regulations you called innovation killers in your tweets last week." The audience was witnessing something rare. Elon Musk being challenged not with opinion or emotion, but with his own company's research. The typical power dynamics were inverting in real time. Musk tried to regain control of the narrative. "Look, regulators don't understand the technology well enough to create effective frameworks. They'll stifle progress based on theoretical risks while the rest of the world moves ahead." It was a familiar argument, one that usually worked well with tech-friendly audiences. But Leavitt was prepared for this pivot too. That's precisely why the proposed regulations were developed with a technical advisory board that includes 3 former scientists from your own company, she countered. "They're not theoretical risks when your safety team identified them as critical concerns, requiring external oversight in their risk assessment documents." Murmurs spread through the audience. This level of specific knowledge wasn't what anyone had expected from a former political spokesperson. Musk's expression tightened. The dismissive humor was completely gone now. "Those documents weren't meant for public interpretation. The media has consistently misrepresented our internal discussions about safety." "I'm not referencing media interpretations," Leavitt replied. "I'm citing the congressional testimony your director of safety provided under oath last month." "Is that also being misinterpreted?" The moderator, sensing the growing tension, attempted to intervene. "Perhaps we should move to our next question." "No." "This is important," Musk interrupted, his competitive nature now fully engaged. "Ms. Leavitt is making serious claims about our research that need addressing." For the next several minutes, what had started as a dismissive joke transformed into an increasingly technical debate about AI safety mechanisms, transformer architectures, and the specific provisions of proposed regulatory frameworks. With each exchange, the audience's perception shifted. Leavitt displayed a command of the technical details that surprised even industry insiders present. She referenced specific research papers, cited technical specifications, and quoted Musk's own contradictory statements with precise dates and contexts. Musk, now fully engaged in the debate, abandoned his earlier dismissive attitude and attempted to match her level of detail. But there was a fundamental difference in their approaches. While Musk spoke in broad, confident statements about technology's potential, Leavitt consistently brought the conversation back to specific, documented facts. "Your recent statements suggest Aggie is 5 years away," she noted, "but your company's technical roadmap submitted to investors projects at least a decade of development before achieving anything resembling artificial general intelligence. Both claims can't simultaneously be true." The audience, many of them technical experts themselves, recognized the precision in her challenges. These weren't political talking points or vague concerns about technology. These were specific technical contradictions that went to the heart of the ongoing debate about AI development and regulation. As the exchange continued, Musk's responses became increasingly defensive. When Leavitt cited a specific limitation in current neural network architectures, he attempted to dismiss it as outdated information. "That research was published by your team 3 weeks ago," she responded calmly. "Has there been a breakthrough since then that hasn't been made public?" The crowd's reaction was telling, a mixture of shocked whispers and knowing glances. Everyone was witnessing something they hadn't expected. Elon Musk, the tech visionary who had built his brand on being the smartest person in the room, being methodically challenged by someone he had dismissed as not understanding the technology. The moderator made another attempt to move the session forward, but the momentum had shifted too dramatically. The audience was completely captivated by this unexpected intellectual showdown. What had begun as a standard Q&A session had transformed into something much more significant, a moment that challenged fundamental assumptions about expertise, authority, and who has the right to participate in conversations about technology's future. The moderator made another attempt to move the session forward, but the momentum had shifted too dramatically. The audience was completely captivated by this unexpected intellectual showdown. What had begun as a standard Q&A session had transformed into something much more significant, a moment that challenged fundamental assumptions about expertise, authority, and who has the right to participate in conversations about technology's future. The pivotal moment came when Leavitt addressed the core issue that had been simmering beneath the surface of their exchange. Mr. Musk, I believe we actually want the same thing: AI that benefits humanity without creating unmanageable risks, she said, her tone shifting from challenge to collaboration. The question isn't whether your technical understanding exceeds mine. The question is whether any single person or company should make unilateral decisions about technology that affects billions of lives. Her statement cut through the technical back and forth and resonated with something deeper. The audience, regardless of their technical backgrounds, understood the fundamental principle she was articulating. Musk paused, visibly processing this shift in the conversation. For a moment, the combative energy dissipated as he seemed to consider her words. "You're not wrong about the stakes," he finally acknowledged, his tone more measured than at any previous point in their exchange. "But innovation requires freedom to explore without bureaucratic constraints." Leavitt nodded thoughtfully. "History shows us the most successful innovations have often balanced freedom with responsibility. The Internet thrived because of open standards and collaborative governance, not despite them." She continued, "Your own career demonstrates this balance. SpaceX succeeded while working within NASA's rigorous safety frameworks, not by avoiding them. Tesla navigated automotive regulations while revolutionizing the industry." Something shifted in Musk's expression, a recognition that perhaps he'd underestimated not just Leavitt's technical knowledge, but her understanding of innovation itself. "The frameworks we're proposing," she explained, "were designed by people who deeply understand both the technology and its potential. Many of them admire your vision but believe responsible innovation requires collaborative oversight, especially with technology as powerful as AI." The audience watched as Musk, known for his unwavering confidence, appeared to genuinely reconsider his position. It was a vulnerable moment rarely seen from tech leaders in public forums. "What specifically would you change about the current regulatory proposals?" he asked, abandoning the defensive posture that had characterized his earlier responses. It was a simple question, but it represented a profound shift in the conversation, from dismissal to engagement. From talking past each other to actually exploring solutions. Leavitt was prepared for this opening. She outlined 3 specific modifications to the proposed frameworks that would address Musk's concerns about innovation while maintaining the safety protocols that her technical advisors had deemed essential. Her suggestions were precise, balanced, and clearly informed by both technical understanding and policy expertise. She wasn't speaking as an adversary, but as someone genuinely interested in finding workable solutions. As she finished, something remarkable happened. Elon Musk nodded, slowly and thoughtfully. "Those are reasonable adjustments," he admitted, surprising both the audience and himself. "Especially the phased implementation approach for different risk categories. That could work." The tension that had filled the room throughout their confrontation transformed into something entirely different, a palpable sense of possibility. The audience, which had been witnessing what they thought was merely an intellectual sparring match, suddenly realized they were watching something much more significant, the beginning of a potential bridge between Silicon Valley's innovation culture and Washington's regulatory approach. Perhaps, Musk suggested with unexpected humility, we should continue this conversation with your technical advisors and our research team. There might be more common ground than I initially assumed. The moderator, sensing the historic nature of what was unfolding, wisely stepped back and allowed the moment to breathe. Leavitt extended her hand. I think that would be incredibly valuable, Mr. Musk. Our teams have more shared goals than points of disagreement. As Musk reached out to shake her hand, the audience erupted into applause, not the polite, obligatory kind that punctuates conference sessions, but genuine, enthusiastic recognition of what they had just witnessed, a moment when knowledge trumped status, when substance prevailed over celebrity, and when the possibility of collaboration emerged from what had begun as confrontation. It was, by any measure, an extraordinary turnaround, not just in the conversation itself, but in the very model of how discussions about technology's future might be conducted. Within hours, clips of the exchange spread across social media platforms. What had happened in that conference room quickly transformed into something much larger, a cultural moment that resonated far beyond the specifics of AI regulation. What we witnessed wasn't just about artificial intelligence or regulatory frameworks, noted technology ethicist Dr. Maya Richardson in a widely shared analysis. It was about challenging the cult of personality that has dominated tech leadership and demonstrating that expertise doesn't always reside where we expect to find it. News outlets that initially framed the story as Musk challenged by former White House spokesperson quickly adjusted their headlines to reflect what had actually occurred. Unexpected expert changes Musk's mind on AI regulation. For many viewers, particularly those who had felt excluded from technical conversations despite their interest and knowledge, Leavitt's performance represented something profound, proof that preparation and substance could still triumph over status and reputation. What made this moment so powerful wasn't that she won the debate, observed education researcher Dr. James Martinez. It's that she transformed it from a confrontation into a collaboration. That's a model we desperately need in our increasingly polarized discussions about technology. The impact extended beyond the specific individuals involved. Technology companies that had been resistant to regulatory discussions began approaching the conversation differently, recognizing that engagement might be more productive than opposition. For Musk himself, the experience appeared to prompt genuine reflection. In a social media post 3 days after the conference, he wrote, "Good reminder that great ideas can come from unexpected sources." Impressed by it, Karoline Leavitt's technical knowledge and practical approach to AI safety. It was a simple acknowledgement, but coming from someone known for doubling down rather than reconsidering. It represented a significant shift. Leavitt's response demonstrated the collaborative approach that had turned the confrontation around. Looking forward to our teams working together on solutions that enable innovation while ensuring responsible development. The best answers come from diverse perspectives. Their exchange sparked what journalists dubbed the Leavitt effect, a growing expectation that technical leaders should be able to engage substantively with well-informed criticism, rather than dismissing challenges based on the challengers' background or credentials. Technology conferences began intentionally including voices from policy, ethics, and civil society in technical discussions, recognizing that diverse perspectives strengthened rather than weakened the conversation. About innovation's future, educational institutions pointed to the exchange as evidence that deep, interdisciplinary knowledge was increasingly valuable in a complex technological landscape. Specialization matters, noted MIT's president in a commencement address, but so does the ability to connect technical understanding with broader societal contexts. Perhaps most significantly, the moment provided a template for how knowledge could triumph over authority in public discourse, not through aggression or performative confrontation, but through thorough preparation, precise communication, and an unwavering focus on substance over status. 6 months after their viral exchange, Musk and Leavitt appeared together on a panel discussing the future of AI governance. The mutual respect that had emerged from their initial confrontation had evolved into a productive working relationship that bridged the traditional divide between technology innovators and policy experts. What I learned from our first encounter. Musk acknowledged during the panel is that expertise doesn't always look like we expect it to. Sometimes the person who asks the most challenging questions is the one who's done the most homework. Leavitt nodded in agreement. And what I learned is that when we move past assumptions about who belongs in these conversations, we discover unexpected common ground. The future of technology is too important to be discussed in silos. For the millions who had watched their initial confrontation and followed its aftermath, the lesson was clear. In an era where confidence often trumps competence and where celebrity frequently overshadows substance, knowledge carefully acquired and precisely deployed remains the most powerful tool for creating meaningful change. It wasn't just about artificial intelligence or regulatory frameworks. It was about who gets to participate in shaping our technological future, and how unexpected voices can transform the conversation when given the opportunity to be heard. If you found this story inspiring, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. We bring you powerful moments of truth and transformation every week. Comment below with your thoughts on who has the right to participate in conversations about technology's future.